Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levinsky, aka Mac and Blue.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mac and Blue. JJ Levinsky, president and co-founder of Blue Wave General Contracting. I'm excited to have some wonderful people on with our guests today from Doxel. For those of you that don't remember, we had Tucker on from Sunt Construction, and he was kind of the one that had propelled, I guess, Doxel into the forefront of our conversation. And so Robert and I thought, oh, how cool, or I believe one of the fine gentlemen at Doxel had approached us as well. So it was a mutual thing. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guest today. First one is Garrick Ballantine. He's the Chief Revenue Officer for Doxel. And secondly is Saurabh Ladha, CEO and founder of Doxel. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so before we get into all the meat and nitty-gritty and stuff, Saurabh, you got to give the background of, a little bit about yourself first, but then how and why you even started Doxel in the first place. I mean, the journey itself has to be a great story.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. I mean, this is our life's work. We're very passionate about it. At a high level, I mean, my inspiration for starting the company is I actually come from a manufacturing background. My dad has been manufacturing copper for several decades. He's retired now. And it was quite interesting that the construction of his factories were always late, were always over schedule. But the operation of the factory was like freaking phenomenal. I mean, like 3 people would run an entire assembly unit that's churning out like $1 billion of copper. 3 people, all right? 3 people on the shop floor. Can you believe that? All because it had real-time feedback, closed-loop feedback, where these 3 operators always knew exactly what was happening on their shop floor all the time. And that was the exact opposite when the facilities were getting constructed, which is why they'd always run over schedule and run over budget. And one of those, in fact, my dad's first one, hit the family pretty bad financially. So I was about 5, and it was quite humbling, honestly. But anyway, fast forward 20 years or so, graduated from Stanford. Like most Stanford grads, like the entrepreneurial bug had bit me, wanted to do something that was meaningful to contribute to society in my small way. Had always been kind of exposed to this problem of construction because my dad's factories were always late. And I started emailing people in the construction industry saying, why does this happen? Why is it so unpredictable? And what I kept hearing back was that they don't have closed loop feedback. They don't know what's going on site. I mean, something as basic as progress tracking was a very, very hard thing to do. Multiple people, lots of arguments along the way, this and that. And by the time that decision makers who could actually do something about a problem found out about it, it was already too late. So I just got I'm getting freaking fired up talking about it. I got really inspired by the fact that for 25 years, I had seen this in manufacturing, real-time feedback. I had programmed these systems myself, and construction didn't have it even back in 2015 when I started the company. And the reason is quite simple. The technology just hadn't existed until then, because in manufacturing, you build the same thing again and again from the same facility, but in construction, you build something just once.
Right.
So you can't wire the whole place with sensors the way you do in manufacturing. And that's where I kind of got excited that, hey, what if we had one mobile sensor, which is a camera, a single sensor that does all the work of tracking progress and, where the project is at. And that's how Doxel came to be. So, we're automated construction progress tracking. We're bringing to construction the closed loop feedback that I feel so inspired by till today that I used to program in manufacturing. And over the last 7 years, I can tell you, working with customers, meeting customers have been the best days of my life. I don't know if I associate more with construction now than I do with manufacturing. I probably do. But just love this industry, man. It's like people are trying to do tough stuff, different people, different designs every single time, and I'm here to help serve them in any way I can,
Well,
as is my
good.
team.
Well, before we again, Saurabh, before we dive into all the cool stuff, Garrick, just could you give a little bit of your background and when you came into the picture with Doxel?
Yeah, thanks, JJ. Happy to be here, and I think that Saurabh summed it up pretty well as far as just the inspiration and the foundation for the company. I joined the company a little over a year ago as a CRO. My background is enterprise.
Oh, so you're
software.
still on double secret probation then? I see how that goes.
Yeah, well, it's been a fun ride.
Garrick is legendary.
It's been a fun ride. I'm happy to be here, and obviously, you've met Saurabh. I mean, he has a lot of passion and just subject matter expertise. And my background is mainly enterprise software. So I've been in enterprise software for over 20 years, primarily working with manufacturing organizations, big data, IT, and so it was kind of a perfect storm when I met Saurabh. I worked at Autodesk for 4 years as well, so I've always had my pulse on the AEC or the construction industry. It's a market or industry that I've always wanted to be a part of, and it was a perfect storm when I met Saurabh because it was an opportunity for me to kind of team up with him and try to build something special here at Doxel with my background being more on the focus on the software and the business side, and his subject matter expertise with the industry. It's been a really good thing. So,
awesome.
Been here a little over a year and happy to join you today.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. So, Saurabh, let's go back to when you started. Everyone's got I have two questions for you. One, if you could, I think the listeners would love to know what's the importance and the story behind the name of Doxel. That's number one. And then two, after you answer that one, take me to that very early, inception to when you had the first. Take us through the story of the first ever job or project that you actually got someone to buy into. Come on. So
it was awesome.
Spin that passion. So first of all, what's the significance of the name?
Yeah, so the name is like it's a pretty geeky backstory behind it, So Doxel is basically a dynamic voxel with a V.
Yep.
And a voxel is a 3D pixel. So we called it. So I'm not even joking. Here's what happened. We were just crazy busy working on our product and trying to get customers. Okay, the last thing we cared about was our name. And then there was this mentor of ours who said, listen, you guys have to incorporate the company, okay? And we were just like, just let us work. We're working on our product. We're talking to customers. Just let us work. And he was like, no, you don't get it. You need to incorporate your company. He said, fine, we'll incorporate the company. And then it was like, to incorporate the company, there's this little form that you have to fill out for the government where it says name. And we were just like, we don't have time to come up with a name. Like, we're too busy working right now. So we said, fine, we're going to give it a day. And we came up with a name, and we filed those forms, and then we just went back to work. And that's, by the way, I say that in a good way out of appreciation for those folks in the early days, because that's the culture of the company today as well. We're all about getting things done rather than, using buzzy words to talk about our software or anything like that. We're all about getting things done. And, but anyway, that's how the name came to be.
I love it.
How did we get our first customer? So actually Doxel, just like most successful startups, tend to follow the rule of build what customers want rather than build something and hope people will come, right? And we followed that. We followed that religiously. We used to talk to customers a lot, and we developed our. In fact, we didn't even write the first line of code until our customers told us that this is roughly what I want. Originally, the thesis of our company began with kind of this idea that, hey, we don't have closed loop feedback. We don't know how much progress has occurred on a daily basis or a monthly basis. And we said, okay, cool. There's drones out there that capture the outdoors, that capture pictures outdoors. But 80% of construction money is spent indoors. So why aren't we doing photo capture indoors? This is back in 2015. And we came up with this whole idea to build this photo documentation solution that, captures pictures indoors and all that. And there was this gentleman who landed up becoming our first customer, actually, who wasn't interested, in just photos. And I actually got kind of thrown out of his office twice. I came back a third time just because I'm persistent, and this is like tiny Rugrats
obviously.
So the gentleman just met us out of respect for the fact that we showed up a third time, okay? He was just like, I feel so sorry for these guys. Like, let's just let them in, okay? And then he called he saw what we'd done the third time around. He called his whole team in. This is like when we were 3 people, 4 people, something like that. And his team said, those photos don't do us much help. What we'd really like to know is how much money do we owe on a monthly basis? Right? In other words, what's in those photos? And I was like, that's interesting. Tell me why. And he said, guy gets like totally shocked. He's like, excuse me, you just asked me that question. And then he goes, I spend 150 million a month on payouts to my subcontractors and contractors. In any given month, if I'm like off by 10%, which is 15 million for that month, that's actually a pretty good month. It can be off by 20%. And I could land up paying subcontractors for stuff that's not even installed. So he was almost like, what kind of a question are you asking me, dude? Like, I need this data. And then he said to us, the photos aren't that valuable to me. If you can analyze those photos and tell me how much money I owe, I'd be willing to pay you a lot for that. He went on to become our first customer. We did like millions of dollars of business with him, which we're excited about. And then that landed up being a common need. So that's how we kind of pivoted away from just the photos piece to realizing that what's in the photos, the analytics, is actually what's important, which was very, very hard technology to develop, which we did. And that's how we created this automated construction progress tracking, right?
So that really was your glass ceiling that you broke through on the first one then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like even till today, guess what? People care about their cash flow. Like on average, Doxel customers are able to shave off 10% on their monthly cash flow. Sometimes it's as much as 30% because they're able to automate pay applications and things like that. And we've been doing this for 7 years now, right? Plus we've started doing like schedule tracking and visualization. We've added to that. But you asked me about how it started. That's how it started, by listening to customers.
I love it. Now, for the audience sake, Saurabh, what isn't Doxel? I think it's important that you describe what Doxel isn't because of the misconception of, and let me just throw this out there. A lot of people know what BIM and IPD are at a very just high level, but they don't know the interactions as far as, that next level. So could you take a minute and describe what Doxel is or is not in relation to those two items?
Yeah, sure. Garrick, you wanna take that, or I can take it?
Or either one of you. Yeah.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I have a point of view, but if you want to start,
no, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I think Doxel is a complete progress tracking solution, right? That we recognize there is a gap in the market that Saurabh alluded to. I think there's something like 40 billion a year that's spent on planning. So we see general contractors and also facility owners spending a lot of time and money on BIM and planning and scheduling solutions, which is great. You need to do it, right? Because these are large capital investments, and you want to make sure that you get it right. You really can't afford to lose because then it costs a lot of money, right? And so we find that there's a lot of money and time spent on planning, but there wasn't really a good solution to track progress during construction, right? To make sure that these teams were staying on schedule and on budget. There hasn't been a ton of innovation. In fact, it's one of the number one complaints we hear from owners when we meet with owner customers is that they feel like a lot of the innovation and the savings don't get passed on to them because general contractors haven't really had the tools in order to be able to do that. They're busy trying to keep up, right, with the demand, and there's a labor shortage and there's all these other things going on in the market that makes everyone's jobs more difficult inherently. So Doxel simplifies that. So we require BIM to run, right? But we help our customers get exponentially more value out of those investments in BIM and scheduling and all these systems and these processes that they put in place in order to actually go plan. We help them on the execution piece of that, and we make it very, very simple. So it's visual, it's easy to use. So the field teams love it, which, as you know, if the field doesn't adopt it, there's not a lot of value that comes back to the customer, right? So superintendents, project engineers, field engineers, they love it, and they don't have to have a PhD in engineering or construction to figure it out. It's something that because it's comprehensive, it's visual, and it's simple. They can open up Doxel and they can see very quickly where they are in terms of progress, percent complete, quantities installed, what they need to do next. So it's a very helpful tool to help them go get their job done. And that's another thing that we hear from field teams is there's a lot of tech out there, and so it's hard to figure out what is actually going to help me, right? Versus what should I be using. And so the one complaint that I hear from field teams is that nothing's really built for how work gets done in the field. And so Doxel's solving that problem. And it's a complete solution for both the field and the executives, whether you're a general contractor or you're an owner. Everybody can log into Doxel and see the same thing. They can speak the same language and be on the same page as far as progress and where they are on their job. And the value just becomes greater and greater as you expand across your entire portfolio. So Doxel can be deployed on a single project, or it can be deployed on hundreds of projects. We have some enterprise customers that are deploying Doxel on hundreds of projects, right? Where it's an enterprise solution, and you can quickly log in and leverage those tools. So I don't know, Saurabh, if there's anything you want to add on as far as what it isn't. I mean, we're not we're not a project management tool, right? We're not a BIM solution. We're our own thing. So I don't know if you want to add on anything there, Saurabh. But
well, yeah, Saurabh, like you said, what is Doxel instead of just what it isn't?
Yeah, so we're automated construction progress tracking that's built to get everyone on the same page and to unlock the full potential of aligned teams. We are automated, visual, and comprehensive. And we very strongly believe in the power of aligned teams, and we designed Doxel to unlock their full potential. My belief is that aligned teams in any industry, especially construction where it's so dynamic, aligned teams are able to make very rapid decisions, very fast decisions. They're able to make gutsy decisions with confidence. And they're able to do that because they rely on facts, not guesswork, on where things are at. It's almost like being in the military, right? Like if you're the general in charge of like a lot of troops, you better make sure you're operating with facts, right? So it's the same thing when you look at a superintendent or a project manager, especially those who are managing hundreds of millions of dollars. They have a huge responsibility on a week-to-week basis. They have to make tough decisions without all the information. Our effort is to give them data on exactly where the project is at, exactly where it's headed, so that they can make decisions on what changes have to be made to land that project on schedule and on time. So the place where we see those gains being made, and those gains are quite significant, is basically in optimizing trade flow, in ensuring equitable pay application verification, fair payments, and in freeing up the team's time, right? So on average, Doxel's customers are able to deliver projects 11% ahead of schedule because their superintendents don't miss anything. If there's a hangar that's not installed, I've seen superintendents, quite honestly, I mean, superintendents are pretty intense, results-oriented folks. I've seen them say, hey, why isn't this hangar up yet? Like next week, it's going to mess up my trade flow. I need it in. So it just cuts guesswork. It cuts those items out. So 11% ahead of schedule on average, between I'd say on average 10% reduction in monthly cash flow, up to 30% sometimes, again, because of pay application verification. But the best part is we're able to accomplish these things with the field team loving us, right? Like field teams are typically able to save 95% of their time that they spend on progress tracking and, frankly, mundane tasks, whereas they'd like to be doing stuff that moves the needle forward, right?
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
So
Right. Okay. So on that, Saurabh, because I'm a general contractor, and I can resonate and relate to what you're talking about. Is especially with our heightened sense of human capital and not enough project managers and trained superintendents in our world anymore. As we're going down this tech revolution and all these tech things, you hit the nail on the head. Is a lot of these superintendents, guys and gals, they're like, listen, I need to build. I can't just be inundated with tech. So with any tech, I always ask the question. I'm going to ask you, what has been that proprietary or just common sense thing? What have you done to allow the ease of application for those field people? Because you already have the testimonials, which we'll get into in a little bit, because I'm going to ask you about market share in a little bit. But before we do that, what do you guys feel you've done better than most to be able to bring that adaptability to the field? How have you made it easy? Well, how have you made it easy for him, Saurabh?
Sure, that's a great question. First of all, let me just say, as a technologist, that sentence you just used just makes me so mad that they can't just be inundated with tech. Well, what that means is it's badly designed tech. Okay?
I'm not going to disagree.
Yeah, tech is supposed to make work easier. We're here to contribute to society, not to take away from it, right? So anyway, what have we done? I mean, if something is taking up more time for the field, software that doesn't work for the field doesn't work for anyone. Okay, they're the folks who are making decisions in the field. I think what we've done really is a couple of things. Number one, we've designed our software to work with existing infrastructure and not have unrealistic expectations on existing infrastructure. I'll talk about what that means in a second, but here's the results of that. Typically, any project that launches on Doxel takes 2 weeks or less to start seeing their first reports. And then they
2 weeks or less.
2 weeks or less, even if it's a gigantic project. And the reason why is because we've built our software to fit into existing software infrastructure rather than add on top of it. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you look at budget tracking or schedule tracking, the first thing that people kind of think about when they think about this space, cameras, BIM, budget tracking, schedule tracking, progress tracking, the first thing they think of is, oh, you probably need a 4D model. We don't. And we don't, because it takes 6 months to create a 4D model. And it's also kind of useless because every 3 weeks, the model changes. The look-ahead schedule changes, right? You got to be dynamic. So 4D models, let me correct that. 4D models are useful for planning. I think there's a lot of great work going on there. They're usually not as useful during construction. We've built our software to not need 4D models, to not need 5D models. All we need is your standard fabrication model, which is your BIM. You can send us your budget in a spreadsheet if you want us to track your budget. You can send us your schedule in Oracle P6 or Microsoft Project, your standard file. We can track it against it. And if you don't have a budget and you don't have a schedule, that's fine too. You can just send us your BIM and you can instantly start to see this visual dashboard on our solution, which tracks % complete across all trades at an incredibly high level of depth, 80 plus stages of construction without even needing anything else. All we need is your BIM. Right? So it depends on the products the customers choose, but at minimum, all we need is BIM. At maximum, we need your standard schedule, your standard budget, even if it's an Excel file, and we get you running in 2 weeks or less without exception.
Whether you know it or not, you hit on a couple things as a general contractor. You said some things that just resonated, which was, you can do it fast and efficiently. You don't need all those other things. It's almost like that was the ultimate sales pitch. And I know that wasn't what you were out to do, but okay. So either one of you, walk me through this scenario, because I think you've laid a wonderful path of what this is. Talk me through, think back, and you don't have to mention names, but think of a recent client of yours who starts with you just in a business development role and says, all right, guys, I'm interested. Walk me through how we can integrate this onto our system. Can you give a testimonial of someone that's done that and what the result was? Just kind of talking through a project or projects for a specific client. Like Saurabh, I'm interested. And, 6 weeks later, he had them implemented on the first one. What does that actually look like if you can put it in context through words?
Sure. Garrick, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. So we had we had a large healthcare customer that purchased Doxel for multiple projects, and they bought it for their contractors to use because they wanted to test it out. Same kind of idea here that you were talking about, JJ. But this customer in particular was building a hospital. It wasn't too large. It was about an 80,000 square foot hospital, and but hospitals are complex, right? And they're high value, and you have to get it right because the sooner that they get up and running, the sooner they can start helping patients and generating revenue and all that stuff, right? So we very quickly got Doxel up and running. I think it was actually under 2 weeks in that particular case, and we got their model. It was simple. One thing about Doxel that I think people don't understand is there's really nothing the customer has to do on their end, right? We don't need your VDC team to spend weeks or months getting everything ready to go. It's just send the model or whatever you have. It doesn't even have to be a completed model, and then we go out and scan, or the customer can go scan. So we'll either ship you a camera or we'll go out and walk the site for you. And so we went out and did a scan. I think after the first week or the initial scan, we call lighting it up. So you light up Doxel, and that's where the aha moment usually happens in that first kind of what we call calibration meeting. We just want to make sure that everything looks correct and the data is what the customer expects and that sort of thing. And on this particular project, the superintendent and his team were in awe because what happened is they had been spending about 60 hours collectively per week tracking and reconciling and reporting on progress, right? Which is normal. You have to do it no matter what. You have to, it's just part of the job. They're obviously having their weekly huddles and coordination meetings with all the trade partners and subcontractors. And the reason the aha moment happened was because we did a scan of an 80,000 square foot facility, and a fraction of the time, you're talking probably a couple hours, right? Because you're walking as you normally would. And then the next day you can come into that weekly huddle and you have everything at your fingertips available in terms of progress, all the quantities. And so we were able to cut that time back. They went in a couple of weeks. They went from spending around 60 hours a week with 6 people, so about 10 hours each, doing this job, with progress tracking and quantity survey and all that manually. Then we cut that down to about 2 to 3 hours a week. So why is that? Why was that an aha moment, or why does it matter? Well, the one thing that everybody cares about on a construction site is safety, right? They want to deliver the project on time, right? Everyone cares about cost. We've talked about that. But we also want to make sure that you're doing all that without sacrificing quality. And so what it did is it freed up not only the superintendent, but that whole field team to go focus on those things that are not mundane, right? That are, the bigger problems, right? And so, you've talked about it. You're a general contractor, JJ, right? Like everybody's feeling the crunch from everyone expects more with less, or at least with the resources that you have. They want more out of everybody. And so that leads to just quality of life issues. It leads to poor morale oftentimes, right, on the job. And so if I can give your team, that time back, a 95% reduction, or in this case, it was 60 hours a week, that's more time at home, with their families. It's less stress, because once they trust the data, that's one less thing that they have to worry about, right? They know that when they have Doxel there, they can log into Doxel, they can see that, they can use it in those huddles and the communication with their trade partners and subcontractors. And then what we've done since then, there'll be more coming out about this now, but we haven't really advertised it or launched it in a big way, as we've automated the production tracking. And so now you can not only take that progress data, but actually start looking at actual production rates to have those conversations with your subs and trade partners to figure out what it's going to take to get things back on track if things are looking like they're going to fall behind and all that kind of stuff. So I'll pause there, but
hold on. Yeah, so it brings up, my mind's going 800 miles an hour to ask you 200 questions. So let's take one at a time. First of all, for the audience that wants to put themselves in the shoes of the GC in that scenario, can you let us know, not the name of the GC, but what did they have for software that they were currently running on before the owner asked them to use Doxel as this added system? So if you could just put people's minds at ease. What did they have for project management or whatever? Can you relay that information?
Yeah, I can give you. I mean, I can just tell you what we see. see more often than not. Normally,
Yeah,
what we see in
generalize it. That's fine.
This wasn't a unique scenario. The one thing we see is that's kind of good and bad. Everybody, I think, is pretty familiar with reality capture, so everyone's taking photos, right? And we see other solutions. You probably can guess who they are. Companies like OpenSpace or StructureSite or others out there, where people are taking photos. I think people have kind of come to the realization that it's good to document the site with photos to some extent, right? But that capability, to Saurabh's point earlier, doesn't really. If you don't understand what the photo is telling you, it's still just a photo. So it's oftentimes just telling the superintendent or those teams kind of what they already know, because they're out there walking it daily anyway, right? And then we see project management solutions like Procore, Autodesk, are all the ones that you would probably expect. And so it wasn't any different here. They were still having to manually count things and reconcile those, and then go report on that. And it's just that requires the superintendent to spend more time on those administrative tasks and doing stuff in the office versus solving the other issues.
Okay, wonderful answer. So question number 2, going back to, in this case, it was the healthcare provider that approached you. Right now, if you had to look at just your market share, is it typically the GC that you're selling to, or more the end user, or what about even like capital stacks and, because you guys all know without money, none of these projects go. So where do you end up seeing that you're working with or for most often currently? Or what's the trend?
Yeah, I can take that if you want.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So, we kind of see it being like 50-50, I'd say. Oftentimes what ends up happening is the owners we work with are typically the owners who have very deep, strong relationships with their general contractors. They're typically like reoccurring type of owners who keep working with the same folks again and again. So frankly, when we work with owners, it's usually an environment where they want their GC to bless it, and for good reason, because at the end of the day, if the general contractor's field team isn't able to leverage the data, then what's the point? It's just fun pixels on a screen, right? So we kind of see it being 50-50. I'd say we often start with either the GC or the owner, but it comes together very fast. So if we're working with the GC and they like what they're seeing and stuff, which happens very often, they'll go up to their owner and say, hey, we'd love to get reimbursed for this on a broader basis. And then we help general contractors get reimbursed by their owners, because the value proposition is very simple, right? To owners, it's like a win-win for them. Gives more transparency, helps the general contractor guard their money, which is kind of important in today's environment. Helps them get things done on time, get done faster. And then if we start off on the owner side, typically the owner pulls the GC in ahead of even signing the contract. And we recommend they do that anyway, because we like to kind of work with hand in glove with the GC. And I think that that's a much healthier way to get technology deployed than to kind of buy something and impose it on the field team, which, I've kind of seen happen with a lot of software right now. So that's kind of how it is.
I would think, Saurabh, I find it hard to believe that the underwriters and the people controlling the purse strings aren't just elated with this system as well, because it just puts accountability to where you're saving them time and money as well. Are you not seeing? I would think the return for them is huge in this application.
Probably would be. I'd say we can't build great when you think about simplicity and ease of use for software, it seems like it's the same thing, but the actual user interface and all of that needs to change in subtle ways for everyone, right? And as a result of that, we like being very focused. So as of today, we're focused on owners and general contractors. We're beginning to see a lot of pull from subcontractors who want to use our software to manage, to buy it on their own. We aren't yet focused on underwriters. We have seen some requests and demands for that, but we aren't yet focused on it. So stay tuned.
Well, good. You can give me a cut for that market share for that thing. I'm just saying because, again, speaking as a GC, in the old days, and I say old days, just even recent, you think about it like, hey, like I've seen your demo, I see what it does, and I love it. Like where it says, like you're going through the model, and it's like, hey, the overhead in let's say wing number 2 of this ambulatory thing, like you said, the HVAC is 22% done, right? Well, that translates right to a pay application. So if I'm that third party that, again, is being hired by the bank or the lender out in New York or something, and a project's here in Arizona, boy, that just gives this such an objective, tool to say, hey, look it, now we don't have to go and do these 14 comp checks. Right here, Doxel has provided exactly what we need to say, look it, it's at 14%. That's what should be on the schedule.
We see it being used in that way by project controls teams and by like auditors and that kind of thing that are internal. And I mean, if underwriters look at it, that's well and good. All I was saying was that we don't usually go after underwriters as a market of its own, but we may in the future. I don't know, Garrick, if you have something to add to that, but yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is we are seeing them pulled in, or they're starting to become more aware. It's really an awareness thing. I don't think underwriters even know, or probably at least the masses.
Well, I use that word. I use that word as underwriting, kind of broad based, Garrick. Not in the truest sense of underwriting, but more in the broad sense of thinking about how whether it's insurance, surety, lending, all those kind of anything on the fiduciary side. That to me, the people that are controlling it, to me, those are underwriters. I mean, because they're the ones that, Saurabh, if you think you're geeky, they're even more geeky. So, okay. And you answered the next question was, I was curious to see if I would think the specialty subcontractors, particularly MP&E, they would love this because of I think of like a process piping job. Oh my God, you guys would just crush it with this application to track all that kind of stuff. So I would see that from the subcontractor trade base, them getting more and more into this to help them as well.
Yeah, that's right. You're thinking about it the right way. I mean, the reason the subcontractors like it also is it helps them plan with the other subs that are out there, right, doing the work, right? And it's just about knowing. And I think the visual nature of it, and the fact that we can work with BIM and make that easy to digest and consume without being a BIM expert, it benefits everybody. It gets everyone speaking the same language. It doesn't matter what continent you're on or where you are or what your background is. You can just gets everybody on the same page. It's a picture really is worth 1,000 words in a lot of cases, right?
All right. So next one, got to drill you guys on this one, the scanning and the capturing the data. What does it look like now, and what can you tell us without giving away all your cool secrets of Doxel 4.0 or whatever you're going to call it? But where does the data capture? What does it look like, and where's it going?
I can take that real quick. So I think the data capture, as far as like progress tracking for the visual interface that Garrick was telling you about, which we see owners and GCs use, which in fact Tucker from Sant was talking about last time he was on. Yep. All of that works off of 360 photo capture, 360 video capture. So it's pretty simple to use. Like a customer puts on a camera, sort of like a GoPro. It's called an Insta360. They strap it onto their hard hat with a fixture we send them. That connects to their phone, like an iPhone or so. They walk around the site just as they normally would, going about their work, and then come back to their desk, upload, and within 24 hours often they have full insights on percent complete, quantities installed, and things like that. And they have the photos within 60 minutes or less often, So that's how the photo capture, that's how progress tracking, schedule tracking, budget tracking work.
Are you able to do that? Are you able to do that? I'm just thinking of, let's say it's a complex job and, superintendent's ill, whatever. I'm just trying to think ahead. Can you do that off of a pre-programmed drone so that they're taking the exact same paths every time, every week, every month, or what? How can we build the robots into the system? Are you guys way ahead on that already?
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Bleu Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
No, I mean, we've looked at that, and I think we're very excited to see a lot of the progress that's taking place in the robotics space and stuff. In fact, I come from that background. That's how I originally got exposed to computer vision, right, and applying it to robotics and that kind of thing. Overall, our view is that the most pragmatic and practical way to collect data today continues to be a person walking around the job site. And the reason for that is we don't yet see we've not yet seen robots that can travel through comprehensively the whole site with all the rubble, all the staircase issues, all the safety issues, all of that can have the endurance to cover a full site. And let's remember, we pride ourselves on being automated, visual, and comprehensive. Comprehensive is extremely important. Why is comprehensive so important? Because if you show up in a weekly meeting with the superintendent and the subcontractors and all of those guys or gals, and you don't have a full snapshot of what happened on your site, what are you going to say? Like, oh, the robot traveled 30% of the site last week, wasn't able to enter this 20% that was blocked off because there's rubble there, this and that. So we're very excited about the future, but going back to kind of what Garrick was talking about, like practical application in the field every single day, we still feel that a person is the fastest way to capture that data. And by the way, we're talking about something like 2 hours for maybe like 150,000 square foot facility or something, because all they have to do is walk.
Yeah.
And you get your steps in, so it's healthy.
See, Garrick, and then that improves your safety factor as well.
It does.
See, you guys had a subliminal message in calling the whole time during this. We just didn't know it. I love it. Okay, well, because you guys are such innovators, what else do you see as this is such a generic question, but maybe you can drill it down into something more specific to you guys. How do you see this catapulting other things as far as the future of technology and construction? Like, what's your nirvana or this holistic dream of yours in Doxel moving forward?
Oh man, you're gonna get me all fired up.
Well, fire away. Stand up, beat that drum. I don't care, Saurabh. Go for it.
Okay. So I believe in a real time everything future. I'll tell you what I mean by that. I mean, think of a construction project as this massive financial undertaking, because that's what it is, where there are hundreds of millions of dollars at stake very often, and there's several decisions that have to be made with high quality every single day, right? What type of decisions are we talking about? Okay. What gets done when? What am I going to get done when? Next week? How much labor do I need to do it? Labor capacity planning. So schedule planning, labor capacity planning. What needs to get delivered to my site by when? So the whole supply chain optimization, right? You want to make sure your material arrives just in time, so you don't pay for warehouse space ahead or it doesn't get stolen and that kind of thing. And you definitely don't want it arriving late. Who gets paid when, so that you make sure that pay is fair and folks are motivated. They get the money that they're owed, all that stuff, right? Now, if you zoom out and you look at it, all these decisions that are being made every day on the construction site are fundamentally dependent on one piece of information, which is what's my percent complete down to the last detail on the job. Okay. Now let's say I'm slipping on something on the critical path. Okay, cool. I might make a expedited request to get that material in on time. I might rejig my look ahead schedule to make sure that trade gets ahead and the others kind of pull back. I can do lots of things. There's a lot of talented people on the job. And remember, we believe in the power of aligned teams. So when teams are aligned, they can make these kind of dynamic decisions. Our belief is that without that, but even today, knowing what your percent complete is on the job is still very cumbersome. It's still subjective. And these decision makers who are kind of like generals in the army don't have the situational awareness that they need, you know? So that's where we come in and we provide that data on a near real-time basis. And our long-term vision is that this enables a real-time everything decision-making environment where in real time, if you're behind on something, there's AI that automatically optimizes your schedule and makes a recommendation to you that, hey, maybe this would work for you. What do you like? Swipe right or swipe left? Or, hey, we think that you're going to be 2 weeks late, but if you pay for the expediting of this material, our data in the past shows that you're going to be able to save maybe 10 or 11 of those 14 days, and it's well worth the money, right? So we recommend you expedite this material right now. So something like that, like almost like an assistant that's helping decision makers on a site do a real-time everything type of decision-making environment. That's our long-term North Star vision for the company.
I love it.
And I would add there's already wins there though too, right? I mean, you could have superintendents that have a wealth of knowledge or decades of experience, and Doxel can still come in and help them see things or at least validate the assumptions that they have. Right? You're right, Saurabh. It is like an assistant, but it just gives them, it arms them with objective data. It takes the debate out of the conversation, and so it exponentially is more impactful because you spend less time arguing and debating and more time problem solving and getting work done. But it also helped. The other big thing that we haven't talked a lot about today, but I think is important to note, is it also helps the younger up and coming generations ramp up faster. Right. And that's something that every general contractor is dealing with. And if they're not dealing with it, they're going to be dealing with it pretty quickly.
Right? Well, I think, without patronizing you guys, when I spied on you and looked at your website and your demos and stuff just to get reacclimated to it, I was like, oh, yeah, this is really a bridge. Like I was thinking of my own son in his 20s going, oh, if he was to ever follow in construction, God help him, I hope he doesn't. But if he was, it would be like, oh, wow, this would be the platform that would allow him to where he doesn't have to put in the 20 years of like I did underneath, other people to aspire to get there. It's a tool to get them. And, even Saurabh, when you were going through your vision here just 30, 45 seconds ago or whatever, I was thinking of, as I was witness, you can imagine how many pull plan sessions I watch, and to watch a PM or a superintendent have that data to where, there's 20 trade people in that trailer where they're looking at that pull planning. Now they have that right time objective data versus the subjective part that always was the acrimony in those meetings, right? Because they were like, well, that pull planning, that's not fair because, Bob missed this and Susie missed this. I'm like, hold it. No, we've got the data now. It's you can't look in the rearview mirror on fault. We have to look forward to the solution. And, combining that, I think you're spot on.
Can I steal 45 seconds and tell you something about that?
Go for it.
Okay. Just give me one sec. So fun story. This happened like last week, so it's top of mind. There's this general contractor we're working with, and you were talking about facts, right? And I was talking about trade flow optimization, right? That's where schedule accelerations happen. So we had this situation where this superintendent, who's an absolute boss, he has a situation where the HVAC subcontractor said they'd got the hangers in, right, on some floor. And the drywall guy was about to go in next and install top rock. And Doxel did not show those hangers lit up. Oh. So he pulls it up and he goes, why isn't this lit up? That's what we hear superintendents saying all the time. Why isn't this lit up? Why isn't this lit up? So he's like, why isn't this lit up? And the HVAC guy goes, oh yeah, I got it in. And he's like, wait a second, let's go to the actual photos that Doxel's AI used to analyze this. And he's like, dude, what you talking about? These aren't in. So if he hadn't, as a result of him identifying that, the subcontractor was able to immediately go in, get those hangers in. The sheetrock, the drywall guy was able to get his top rock in the next week as planned. If that hadn't happened, it would have cost them 2 weeks on the critical path.
Right.
Because they would have found out the next week when there's a whole crew of people waiting around. And by the way, you've got to pay them. So that's what, facts actually help. Like decision makers want facts. Decision makers want details. They don't want like high level photos and things like that. They want to know what's my quantity install across all my trades. And they want to know that at a very high degree of depth and granularity, right? Not just what's my percent complete, but how many supports are installed, how much ductwork is done, how much insulation is done. Why is insulation happening in zone 6 instead of zone 4 like we agreed to? You're messing up my trade flow, right? Like, winning teams want to know the details. So that's who we are designed for. We're designed for people who want to know the details.
No, it's a great example. All right, gentlemen, as we wind down here, it went fast, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what am I not asking you? What do you want to tell either about yourselves or about what you guys stand for with your mission, your product, your service? What didn't I give you a chance to explain?
Garrick, you can go for it, and then I can go next, maybe.
I was gonna say, look, yeah, the hour did go very quickly, so thank you, JJ. We appreciate the time. I think we covered a lot. I think there's more, in the area of just how we complement some of the other solutions out there, like quality and schedule and other things that the Doxel can impact or have a positive impact. The other thing too is we probably could have gone a little deeper into cost. And in the fact that, the one thing that we hear probably more than I've heard at any other company I've worked at in my career is there's gold in the data that Doxel delivers. And so I just want to leave you with that. I think there's certainly there's an opportunity to go deeper, right, in some certain areas. But I think the big takeaway here, and the thing that I get most excited about, and one of the big reasons why I wanted to come work with Saurabh and Doxel is, for the first time, we're helping everybody, all the stakeholders involved that we're working with and selling to. It's not like we're helping one at the detriment of another. Yeah. When somebody deploys Doxel, everybody wins. The owner wins because they get the innovation, and ultimately they're going to get the cost savings that they're looking for. The general contractor wins because their teams are more productive and happy, and their margins are going to increase as a result of using Doxel and having that objective data. The trade partners win, or the subcontractors win, for the same reasons, right? Because they are going to execute better, and they're going to have information at their fingertips that they've never had before. And so it begs a question, like, why not automate? And that's one thing I ask our customers. It's like, I get it. You can keep doing things the way that you're doing it with or without Doxel. There's going to come a point though that, doing things manually and not automating is going to be a problem. And it will no longer be an option for a lot of customers. And so it's like, why not get ahead of the curve and start now? So I look forward to continuing the conversation and going deeper with you, JJ, and obviously getting it. We'd love to get you back as well.
We could obviously do 2.0 at some point. Saurabh, what would you like to opine on that as well?
I think, look, I've spent a lot of time talking about tech and numbers and all that. I'll just say this. What we're offering owners is an opportunity to sleep at night, knowing that their project is probably going to be delivered 11% ahead of schedule and potentially with 10% reduction in monthly cash flow because of us. And what I'd say to general contractors, what we're offering to general contractors is an opportunity to go back to what they love doing, which is building and not reporting, right? It's not about being a bean counter. It's about getting stuff done, right? And that's what we're all about. The best part is we're able to do both. And that's the key thing. That's why you need aligned teams. You need everyone to be on the same page. You need software that makes less work for the field, not more, that everyone wins for. And that's been my aspiration from day one in what we're doing with this company. Frankly, what I'm doing with my life, it means the world to me. And I just love seeing the small impact that we're making in society. And it makes me feel like our work here is meaningful and gets me fired up every single day. So,
well, good. Your father's probably proud of you too, because you're out of the copper business.
No, that's right. That's right.
Although commodities and copper are always kind of nice too. Well, gentlemen, thank you again for being on Mac and Blue. And as you know, this was all about our kind of ethos is, building Arizona. And this is just another example of how we do that by paying it forward, by providing information, people like yourself. So with that, just to let the audience know how they can get in contact with you, I would assume just go to Doxel.com. And if they want a consultation, I'm sure they can sign up there, correct?
Yeah, it's Doxel.ai. And then our emails are pretty straightforward. I'm Garrick at Doxel.ai. So, but we're happy to help in any way we can. I mean, look, the best projects are delivered as a partnership between all the different stakeholders, and Doxel just wants to be one of those partners in that mix, to help. So,
Well,
Yeah,
it's cool about for the at least for the Arizona audience or at least the regional Southwest audience. You have some good customers like Sant and Tucker over there. So if they need testimonials or almost referrals from you, I'm sure that'll be easy to be had. So again, if anyone's interested, reach out to these gentlemen and their fine team at Doxel. And with that, gentlemen, thanks again for being on today.
Thank you, JJ.
All right, good luck, continued success.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Torrey Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levinsky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.